What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another Serious Angler podcast, powered by our friends over at X2 Power Batteries. And as always, I'm your host, Bailey Egbert, and joined with me to the right is Mr. Andy Full. What's going on?
What up? Not a whole
to the
lot.
bottom here, we have the host of Business from the Bass Boat, hot off a fiery tournament at Lake Havasu. Nice finish. Back home.
Thanks, man.
Probably not settled just yet, but trying to. Mr. Adam Deakin. What's up, fellas?
Man, it sucks to kind of be back in Colorado and there be snow and stuff. I was even though it was cold a little bit in the mornings at Havasu, I miss at least it getting warmer in the afternoon. So I guess that's my update. I know you're in Florida, so you've got a lot to look forward to the next month or so.
Yeah, dude. I think this is probably the coolest place I've done a podcast. Not that we've done a podcast in too many places besides, my office in the apartment, but like I got in-ground pool right here. I'm outside in Florida weather in a sun shirt and a Blackfish sun hoodie. Like I'm kicking it right now. And I know Andy's in a Blackfish sun hoodie as well, but if he went outside, he'd be much colder than I am.
It was a balmy 54 here today. It was actually quite pleasant for Western New York. I was running around in a long sleeve and shorts, so it was a nice day.
Yeah, and which is wild because Friday when I started driving, it was 5 degrees.
Yeah, it was great.
New York sucks. Don't move to New York. Yeah, but
4 months out of the year, I'd love to live there.
Yeah, but like you talked about it though, Deke. Like that's honestly my favorite time of year when you can wear a hoodie in the morning. Like it's not hot right off the get-go, but then you can take the hoodie off and wear like sun pants and a shirt throughout the rest of the day. That's always the nice part. And then you can it's cold enough at the night so you can have like a nice fire, have some beers around the fire. That's like mint.
I'm with you.
Mm-hmm. Well, dude, today's show is going to be a lot of fun. We got Mr. Todd Kline on, who won the recent Toyota Series on Lake Havasu, which you yourself fished, placed 14th. And I'm intrigued. So what we're going to do is we're going to have Todd on here for a little while. We're going to dive into his event, his win. And afterwards, when we let Todd go, we're going to dive into Deakin's tournament because, dude, we were feeling for you on day one. And then day two, we're like, damn, the dude come around here slapping people around, making his way back in, ready for a day 3 comeback. So it was. I'm excited to dive into that, dude. But any preliminary thoughts before we get Todd on here?
No, man. I mean, I guess just with how the tournament went, I'm super pumped to get Todd on. I talked to him day 2, and just watched like his bags. I could not believe okay, day 1 catches 22, and then day 2 like backs it up with 23. It was like, my gosh, he is straight up catching them. So it was cool to see that. It was tough, man. I mean, the bites were not easy to come by, at least for me anyway. Like in practice and stuff, when I got bit, it was a good one, but it wasn't like I was getting 15 bites a day or anything like that. And that definitely showed day 1 for me. But it was tough. It was a cool place. I've only been to Havasu one other time, so it was cool to get there in the spring. And enjoyed the lake, and I can't wait to get into the interview with Todd.
Heck yeah. Andy, anything before we bring Todd on here? Any news for people before we get started?
Right now, everything's pretty chill. I just want to say I wish I lived like less than 3,000 miles away from the southwest bodies of water because a lot of them look really cool to fish. So,
dude, the scenery's unreal on that place. Yeah. And like a lot of, right. Like I love it. Like Mojave, Havasu, all that. I just love the desert from that perspective. So I agree. Andy, you're welcome in my boat anytime, man. Fly down. It's Vegas. You can fly at least from Denver to Vegas. You can fly for like $28 right now. And then it's a 2-hour drive. So
I'm sure I hate flying. So like, absolutely.
Oh, and Deacon, I should show you the text conversation of Andy and I booking our flights for Red Crest. It is hilarious.
I was like, yeah. I was like, do I just drive? Like, it's a control thing. I just hate flying. Hate it.
Oh, man, I don't mind it at all. 3 hours are a lot better than 25 hours of driving.
Yeah, but I like looking at what I'm doing. Like, I don't know, just one of those weird things that I don't like.
I'm with you.
It was so funny though. I'm like, Andy, I proposed to my girlfriend at the time so that I didn't have to have a girlfriend anymore. I don't need you to be like the girlfriend. Like I have to hold your hand and go through this. Like,
please do.
I was letting him have it. I'm like, come on, buddy. Good. flights are booked. There'll be videos on the Serious Angler social of me holding Andy's hand through the airport and on the flight to make sure he gets there okay.
I'll be okay, but you don't have to hold my hand. That'd be a really funny picture.
It's good. Well, boys, I think we can make fun of Andy later. I think it's time to get Mr. Todd Kline here on the show. Mr. Todd Kline, what's going on, man?
Good evening, guys. Thanks for having me. And I've enjoyed sitting on the sidelines watching you guys banter so far. It's kind of funny.
Yeah. That's
I don't know where you're. Hey, Adam, I don't know where you're finding $28 flights though. Let me in on that.
Dude, it was, gosh, I want to say Frontier had one, Southwest had one. I think it was like right after Southwest did all that. My dad flew in for a couple of days of practice, so he flew to Vegas.
Yeah,
I think for $28 from Denver to Vegas.
That is mind blowing.
And then he drove. Then his rental car was $12 a day in Vegas.
Wow.
And I mean, you know, like driving from Vegas to Havasu is just straight shot, super easy to drive.
Yeah.
So it was. I was like, wow, this is people want Vegas wants people to come to them. Clearly, like I was blown away at those prices.
Yeah,
they're probably paying people's flights if they come gamble.
Exactly,
they're going to spend triple the amount of what they're paying for flights.
It's an economic.
There's some sort of deal going on.
We were talking weather with everything, Todd, but you're in that beautiful weather all the time zone, aren't you, over there? And you're near San Diego, or where exactly are you?
I'm in San Clemente, so it's considered a beach town. I'm about 3 miles from Pacific Ocean, and as crazy as it is, Adam, you know, it was nice out there, but when I got back here on Sunday, I jumped out of the truck because I just had to straighten some things up before I put my boat away, and I jumped out of the truck and I was like, it felt hot, like warmer than the desert. And I was kind of blown away by that, actually. Wow. So it's interesting. It's nicer weather here right now than they currently have out there in Arizona. Or I should be specific because Arizona is a very diverse state as far as climate goes. So Lake Havasu.
There you go.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah, and we're going to get into that here in a little bit, talking about being right next to the beach, because Todd, you mentioned something. We're not going to get into it right now, but to tease it for folks that are watching now and listening later, is you teased me on the phone because I've been having to sit here for 3 hours wanting to know what you were going to talk about, with that you used to surf professionally before you're fishing professionally and how that's helped you mentally. And I'm actually super curious to get into that later.
Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, just kind of a fast track. I grew up in South Florida, and as a kid, you know now being down there in Florida, but specifically South Florida, you can ride as a kid, you ride a bike a mile in any direction, throw it in the bushes, and just start walking and fishing. You know, whether it's brackish, fresh, whatever. There's water in Florida, and so I grew up fishing. That was my number one passion. And then, kind of early teens, about 13, I started surfing and really took a liking to that. And there's a lot of parallels. We'll talk about some of those here shortly. But just as a whole, not necessarily on the competitive side, but there's a lot of parallels between surfing and fishing. It's just the wilderness and are the outdoors, I should say. And so I gravitated towards that, and I really jumped into the competitive side and had success. Long story short, I drove across the country when I was 21 to go full speed as a professional, and was able to make a solid living for 5 years surfing. And then parlayed that as I was actually seeking a sponsorship from one that I had left already, which was one of my first sponsors at the time, was Quicksilver, the apparel company. And I was knocking on the door, and they kept telling me no. But I left on good terms with them. And finally they said, okay, here's the deal, Todd. We're going to bring you in. We're going to sponsor you, but we're going to wind down the surf, and we're going to give you an opportunity to get a foot in the door on the marketing side. And 16 years later, I finished up as a marketing director there, and it was basically a paid education. It was awesome.
That's super cool. So with everyone that's new to the show, we always kind of bring it back to the roots and kind of ask how you got your start in the very first place. Like, who introduced you to it? First bass you caught. How did you get your start into bass fishing?
Sorry, my computer just got all weird on me. Whoa, did I lose you?
No, we got you.
Yeah, you're good.
Where the heck did the screen go?
Oh, no.
Well, we can hear you and see you.
Yeah, we can hear and see you. Just fine.
Wow, what a bummer. I might not be able to watch you guys anymore and see your cute faces.
I think your computer is doing you a favor.
Yeah, maybe. Anyway, so I'll run it blind. So, sorry, what was the question?
Yeah, so we're trying to throw it back to your start. Like you mentioned, you got to where you got into fishing in the first place was where you grew up over there on, on the Pacific. But how did you get your start into bass fishing, and who was the reason that you got that start?
My dad definitely introduced me to it, but then I had a lot of friends in the neighborhood. We'd come home from school and literally grab like a bag of plastic worms, bag of bullet weights, and some hooks, and one fishing pole, and take off. And that was the majority of my fishing for most of my life. And once in a while, my dad would take me out on the boat. But most of my youth was just doing my own thing. A lot of times it was solo, And even then, you would put stuff together, but it wasn't until I really moved out to California where I actually realized there's a full science to it, and you got to understand, so many different intricacies of what's going on out there to actually, constantly catch fish, and not just catch them, but, catch the ones that you want to be catching, But I definitely cut my teeth down there. Dad would have been the one to first introduce me.
Heck yeah. We before we start diving into your tournament, we did get a question here before the show even started. People were firing off some questions for you in the live feed. This one was from Anthony Geis, and he's asking, you being a straight up beast as a co-angler, which angler helped you out the most or gave you the most insight? Anything that was good in your transitioning from the front of the boat, from the back of the boat?
There was actually, when I first got going out here, because it is so, I just saw myself there for a second. Sorry, I found it. I've been working on this. Right, he's back. There we are. I'm back.
Welcome back. Welcome back.
Sorry, I couldn't sit in the corner by myself. I'm back now. I feel more comfortable. I had two buddies that lived in the same neighborhood because I wanted to buy a boat, right? Once I'll rewind a little bit. When I realized, okay, I want to start fishing in California. When I first moved here, it's a desert. There is no lakes. There is no canals. It's like, I can't bass fish in California. And it was pre-internet, not to date myself. And so I didn't bass fish for like 10 years living in California when I first got out here. And when I was still traveling for surfing, I was fishing in South Africa. I would catch bass in France. I was fishing still all over the world except where I lived. And finally, after, people would say, oh, you need to go check this out. You need to go check this out. And in my mind, I'm thinking, that's great. What is it? A puddle? Like, how big is it? I'm used to like seeing Okeechobee, one of the largest lakes in the world. And here I am in the desert. So finally, I started to get into it, and I started asking questions and meeting people. And I met two brothers, Brian and Kevin Linehan, real great anglers, for our region. And Kevin's actually the Western regional. I don't know if he's sales manager. He's big with Mercury now. And those guys, really just, kind of helped me get started, because it is so polar opposite of fishing. A deep spot in Florida is 6 feet. A deep spot here could be 75, so it was a polar opposite transition. And those guys really helped me a lot. Another gentleman by the name of Jay Poor, who's, I'll call the Yoda of Castaic. He's been around for a long time, just gave me a lot of insight as well. I mean, there's been a lot of guys, but, when I was co-angling, I wanted to win, but more importantly, I wanted to be respectful, because it is such a small industry. And any of you co's that are out there, wanting to cut your teeth, or you're already doing it, obviously, you want to win, but just be respectful, because it is such a small community that if you get a little crazy out there, you get a reputation, and you only have, you only get one chance to make that name for yourself. And it's harder to make that, reputation better, as opposed to, establishing it as a good person and then coming back maybe a little bit on occasion here and there. But I learned a lot, no matter who you drew, if it was a big name, you could learn a lot of things, good and bad. If it was a nobody you never heard of, you could still learn good and bad. And it's just, you have to have the lens, an open mind, and just be a complete sponge to be willing to take that on. And that's what I was. And that's why I did it a little bit longer than maybe some guys did. And I even had, pros go, dude, you're doing the right thing. I jumped out of it too early, So it was a great opportunity. I think it's awesome what MLF and One Bass offer. One Bass is unique because it's shared weight, and you really embrace the co-angler there. I mean, if I draw you at the AZ Open, there's a good chance I'm going to be tying your line up in the morning. I'm going to have your baits for you, and I'm going to tell you how the whole place lays out and, you know, what we're doing. I'll tell you the cadence, the whole deal, you know, and if they, you know, if they listen and they do it right, then we're doing the best we can out there, you know. So it's I enjoy being able to you know, kind of give back and help the others, because it was definitely key in you know, getting me to where I'm at this point, you know.
Heck yeah. That's such a good point too about how fast word travels in this industry.
Well, you know, and it's true what I just said, but also, you know, one thing I've learned real quick too, and you gotta put the filter out there. You know, people, that's one thing it's kind of a bummer. It's not just the fishing industry; it's people as a whole with the internet now, and
it's true.
You know, social media. You get a lot of people, you know, and it's, you know, they start stuff and it's not even remotely true, you know, and so you just you know, you got to have your filters on and definitely be aware of what people are saying out there, but just do the right thing and you'll be fine.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think, guys, what Anthony was getting at there is, I don't know if you guys realize, Todd has won, what, 4 times from the back of the boat as a co-angler?
Yeah.
I mean, that's incredible, man.
Yeah, I look back on that recently, actually, and I'm like, how the heck did I do that?
Dude, like, man, so I fished 2 of the Western events last year as a co-angler. And then last year I kind of took and fished Champlain as a co-angler and did all these different places, flew in, same kind of deal. You can,
that's awesome.
For those of you out there, Southwest, you can fly with your rod and reels in its own situation, as well as a tackle bag. All checked bags are free, and fishing equipment counts for that. So if you are looking to travel as a co-angler, Southwest for sure is a pretty cool situation. But man, it is hard from the back of the boat. It is very hard. And I took the same approach, the learning aspect. And it's great to hear that you did that for a long period of time. I think that's an important thing to learn as much as you can.
Deacon, are you a travel agent during the day? You're doing a lot of promoting for flights on this thing.
No joke. Tell you what, the next sponsorship for the Serious Angler and Business from the Bass Boat podcast is going to be Southwest Airlines.
Okay.
This is from the Bass Boat,
$28
Southwest Airlines.
You're right. That was pretty good.
Todd, it sounds like on the podcast coming up here soon, we need to do like a co-angler panel and have like you, Brian New, like I would even argue from our area, Andy, like Sakai Ushio, who's won a bunch of from the back of the boat, like some legends of the co-angler, legends from the back of the
Justin
boat.
Lucas won a bunch.
The OG, yeah. I think that would be a great show to have. And obviously that's not the premise of tonight's show, as much as I want to start diving into co-angler questions, but I guess this is me reserving you now for another show down the road.
I'm good.
Perfect.
We'll see what Southwest comes to this table with. Maybe I can get a cut of that.
Yeah, there we go.
We'll get you some free flights if you come out again.
Yeah,
that'll work. Peanuts.
Exactly.
We'll get you a window seat.
There you go.
All right, so let's start diving into the tournament. And again, we don't want to pull any juice out of you because you got another derb to go in here in a couple of weeks. But start it from practice. Like when you put the boat in, what was kind of going through your mind? Like, what were you expecting throughout the week? Kind of how you approach things.
So I love Lake Havasu. My 2 favorite fisheries so far that I've been able to go to are Clear Lake in Arizona, or in Lake Havasu, and they're polar opposite. But love them both. You guys touched on a little bit just the landscape out there at Lake Havasu. It's so beautiful, and I love the fact that it's diverse with smallmouth and largemouth. And they both play a major role. And that time of year, generally for me, it's always the brown ones. I'm always chasing the smallmouth. I've put a lot of time in out there. I've got a lot of stuff marked and have a lot of confidence in a lot of different things out there that time of year. And I like the fact that it's really tough fishing that time of year generally because don't get me wrong. I love to be able to catch a ton of fish, but I also don't like the fact when you're literally it's a game of ounces, or it's a full blown spawn and it becomes more of an Easter egg hunt. Which at the end of the day I'll adapt to all of it, but I like that time of year out there, so I'll jump into it. And I went out there with the mindset, okay, you're going to catch smallmouth, and with that said, still kind of looking around a little bit for the largemouth, but. It was cold when I first got there. Water temps were as crazy as it was upper 55, just maybe almost 56. I saw at one point, and then we had, you know, big drop in temperatures, winds really kicked up. And so, you know, by the time that the tournament started, we were looking at like 51, 52. So that was a big change. But, you know, the first couple days I was, you know, pretty on par for what I was anticipating as far as the smallmouth went, what I was, you know, hoping to achieve. You know, generally that time of year, I'm going to get 5 to 8 bites a day. If I get them all on the boat, I'm going to have 15 to, you know, potentially 20 pounds, right? And that's fantastic. But hooking them is just getting started, because generally I got 5-pound test in my hand, and that is scary. As much as I love it, it's scary. It's scary as heck, and I'll elaborate on that here shortly. But Tuesday, the winds blew like 25, and I didn't want to fish, and I can tell you 95% of the anglers did not fish.
I saw your trailer down there, dude. I launched as well, man. It was brutal.
Yeah. Nobody likes that. But at the same token, it's like, I'm not out there on holiday either to go walk trails and look at beautiful Arizona, you know? And I always tell myself, I've had this situation before. Find one spot, find one bait, and you're doing better than you did before you started today. And you're also doing better than a lot of your competition that's obviously sitting home and doing whatever.
Right.
So I launch, and I told myself, keep the spinning rods in the box and pull out some bigger stuff and go figure out how to catch some green ones. Started doing that, you know, good 2-3 hours into it. I haven't had one, and I make a little adjustment. I catch a 3.5 pounder. And the way it all happened, I'm like, you know, even though I was stoked I caught it on a particular bait, I said, hold on, maybe I can tweak things just a little bit and might be able to even do better than that, you know? And so I made a couple of adjustments. Bite, 4-pounder, bite, 5-pounder. I'm like, oh, wait a minute, what's going on here? So long story short, put a little, you know, plastic over the hook, and I've only got a few hours of light left, or not even light. I got off the water at like 1, because I'd had, you know, about 1:30, 2 o'clock. I'd had enough. It was, you know, it was jacked up out there. I knew I was going to get one more day of practice. But I marked some waypoints, and then that night I was pretty excited, because now I've, you know, I didn't think it was wind reliant, and I'm like, I've got a plan now, you know, and I also have a great plan to fall back on, because I've got, you know, 4 days of practice on smallmouth. So the next day it rolls around, still a little breezy out there, but I go run completely other, you know, zones. There's one. I'm like, all right, let's see what happes here. And first morning rolls around, and, you know, it was on. And so for me that day, you know, and I think it's a you know, a good lesson for everybody. You know, it's never going to be, well, I'm not going to say it's never going to be easy, because there are going to be some of those times where you just stumble across something that's ridiculous. But my point is, that day was not, you know, ideal to be out there fishing. Most guys weren't. I even had someone tell me, dude, you know, when I was on my way back, I didn't tell them anything, but when I'm on my way back, they tell me on the phone, dude, you're wasting your time out there today. You're not going to find anything. And even if you do, it's not going to carry over into the tournament. And I just went, I didn't even answer.
You know.
Yeah, you know,
right.
And that's the difference. And, you know, for me, you know, this whole deal, and we're going to talk definitely more on this topic, but, you know, it's won or lost this sport between the years, you know, and it starts right out of the gate.
Yeah.
I appreciate
not agree with
that
more.
I appreciate that so much. I love days that are just foul weather, because I know 95% of the people that you're fishing against are already checked out, especially the ones that are just like, oh, you can just tell by how they react at the boat ramp or the phone call that somebody makes. You're like, oh, this is going to be fun.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Loading my boat that day, Todd, I was coming in, and the wind had shifted slightly and was just ripping on the ramp. Right.
Yeah, so that ramp's sketchy, dude.
It's horrible. So tight. And
it will jack your boat up real quick. So sorry to cut you off, but I'll put my back end out there, power pole down, put a long rope, and then let the wind keep the bow all the way on the other bank almost, you know?
Really? Okay.
That way it's not touching anything, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. So, like, I mean, literally, it's taken me like 30 minutes. I'm by myself too. So I'm like, literally, I took 3 ropes out of the boat. I connected to like the trolling motor, a front grip, and a back grip, and just like had it off the dock, right? Because it just so it wasn't banging around. But like then I ran up to my truck and was like, oh my God, it was so scary.
Sketchy.
But glad to get off the water. But same deal, man. I agree. I think that I found some of my fish that day for sure that made a difference, and kind of that mental battle of, man, I felt good when there's only 7 boat ramps or 7 people at the ramp when, you know, normally there'd be.
Yeah. And I heard the other one had nobody up there at Windsor.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Good stuff. It's a good lesson, man.
It really is. There's some people that say, you got us? Uh-oh. You got us, Todd?
Yeah. Is it my Wi-Fi?
Slightly there, it just glitched a little bit, but it's not horrible.
Huh. I'm in the garage, so
I think we got you now.
Yeah, I think we're good now.
Okay.
Yeah, we got you. You're back. What I was going to comment on that is, like, there's some people that are like, oh, I found what I needed to find. I'm going to take this last day of practice and I'm just going to wake up. I'm going to sleep in. I'm going to rig some tackle. I'm going to relax on the couch. And then, well, lo and behold, Mother Nature comes through and throws you a 180, or you don't have as much as you think you found. And you're like, dang, I wish I had another, you know, basically 12 hours to go and figure something out. Or use as much time as you can. Like, even if you think you covered a lot, just go do something weird. Like, go get weird with it. Go do something unique. That's a great point. Use as much time as you can.
I mean, until that day, guys, I didn't, you know, I was bumping into a couple green ones, you know, trying to catch the smallmouth, but for the most part, I just didn't think the green ones were doing anything. You know what I mean? And then once you figure it out, you're like, holy smokes, how wrong was I? You know? And that's crazy because, you know, that's how that tournament usually is. But I'm usually on, you know, the other side, one of the spectators going, how did that dude catch 22 pounds today? That's crazy. And now I was that dude that caught 22 pounds, and you're like, I can't believe that just went down like that, you know? And it's, you know, we always know someone's going to whack them, and it just felt good to be the dude that actually whacked them.
Oh, heck yeah. I mean, so kind of walk us through day one, you know, throughout the duration of the tournament, really. I know obviously day 3 seemed like more of a harder day to get the weight that you wanted that you had in the first couple of days. But, you know, kind of walk us through the tournament from a mental standpoint.
Day 1 kind of, you know, went as I was anticipating. Like it was pretty good for me. And I had my limit, you know, by, I'm going to say by 10:30, 11 o'clock, I had that limit. And so I was like, you know, I need to lay off a lot of the stuff. It's day 1. And it's interesting because, you know, even though it's not a shared weight, I still keep my co-anglers in mind. And I'm like, I'm not going to just go park out in the middle. You know what I mean? I need to get this dude some fish. So with that in mind, I tried to run just new water in hopes of, you know, expanding for the next couple of days. And in addition, you know, trying to get the dude behind me some fish as well. And so, you know, that was the goal. And I think, you know, caught a couple throughout the afternoon, but it was good knowing that I didn't, you know, really beat it up, you know. And then day 2 rolled around, and mind you, when I got to those scales, I was blown away to see where I was sitting and what my weight was. And I was like, oh, wow. Okay. Let's just see if we can keep some sort of pace on day 2. And day 2 went out there. It was a little slower for me. First fish, you know, and this had happened before, but first fish, it feels like a bite, and I swing and I yell net, and I literally get to like right here, and it just stops. And in my mind, I'm like, gosh darn it, it's a tree. And mind you, this is like a millisecond, but it seems like it's 3 seconds. I'm like, damn tree. And it goes like this. And I'm like, oh gosh. And my co-angler's like, holy shit. And, you know, it's a big one, you know, and that's my first fish in the morning. And I'm like, yes, let's go, you know. And
that was that 7-pounder?
No, we'll get to that in a second.
Oh, no.
So that's my first fish in the morning, and then run around to another spot and get another one fairly quickly. I think it's like a 4-pounder or something, you know. So I've got 2 really solid fish in the well, and it's still pretty early in the morning. And I'm like, this is sick. So I'm moving from one spot, transitioning to another, and, you know, it's not that far to where I'm actually going to run fast. And I say to myself, okay, you got 2 fish in the well. You know there's a spot between here and there where you can pull out the spinning rod and at least probably put something in the well, whether it's a brown one or a green one. So I just obviously didn't say anything to the co. I just reached down, grabbed the spinning rod, lined it up on the active target, fired out, and, you know, I'm bringing it up, reeling it in. All of a sudden, boop, and I reel into it. Got 5-pound test and catch like a 4.5. I'm like, that was the great call. What an amazing call. So pull off that a little bit, cut my line, retie with the 5-pound, pull back up over it, line up with the active target, fire back out. I'm not kidding. Next cast, same situation. Doop, set the hook, and it just. I mean, I go, dude, I've got a flipping giant. I've got a giant. I'm chasing it on the trolling motor, 5-pound test, just like freaking out. And it comes up. It's one of those ones where it can't get out of the water and does the
wobble.
Back in, and I'm like, oh, shit, dude. We get over there, and I get that thing, and I'm freaking out because I've got 4 fish already. And that one's, I knew it was at least 6. And it's a big one. I mean, Havasu, it's a giant, And then I went on to get another, solid fish. And then again, I kind of just shut it down and tried to go, find some new water and find some fish for my co. And that night, get in, weigh 23 pounds. I'm like, oh my God. I actually thought I had a little bit more than that even, but wow. I'm not gonna. I'm just flying right now. I'm going into the final day. I'm leading the pack.
7 pounds, I think, right?
You were leading by 7? It was like just shy of 7 pounds.
Oh my gosh!
And it was
you were walking down going down the boat ramp with a trench coat and everything. Like you're big man on campus on day 3.
No, I mean I'm flying. But I'm also humble as hell because I know the dudes that are in that thing. I know who's out there. Those guys know every little nook and cranny. Those man-made structures out there, they've got some giant largemouth / grouper in them, and those guys know where those big grouper live. And I'm still learning. So I just, I was going to try and keep that pedal down to the floor as hard as I could. I led out there one time 2 years ago at the AZ Open. And on that day 3, slid a little bit. Mike Williams passed me and ended up beating me. I finished second, and Williams was second in this one. So I was like, okay, I got a couple more car lengths on this dude, but I know he's got a fast car. So don't jack up in a corner somewhere. And I'll leave it at that. If you have any questions, or we can go into day 3.
I don't know what that mic sound is coming from.
Yeah, I don't either.
You guys hear that?
I do. Every once in a while, I hear like a little scratchy.
Weird.
Mine?
No, I don't think it's you. I don't know where it's coming from, to be quite honest, but it's all good. So like, I mean, you got to feel pretty ecstatic. I mean, when did you know? I mean, day 2, you probably had a feeling, like a subconscious in your head that's like, we got a pretty good shot at this thing. But I mean, knowing an angler that's level-headed, you're probably like, okay, we just need to do our job on day 3. So there had to have been a point though in day 3 where you're like, I think we got this in the bag. Or did you just kind of hold your breath till the scales?
I felt really good in the morning. As corny as this is going to sound, you just hear a certain song and it just feels right. The national anthem that morning, just everything felt so good, like, chicken skin moments. And, like, this is it. This is the day. Let's go, And I hit my first couple spots, and first cast, I get bit and it doesn't stick. And I'm thinking, okay, it's on. They're eating. We're good. 2 hours later, I'm like going, okay, you haven't had a bite. What are you going to do? And that's when I decided, you know what? Go to plan B. Because, not to sound arrogant, I didn't have to catch a fish that day. I was still probably going to get 5th, but that's not what I was setting out to do on that day. With a 7-pound lead, you lose that one. You're not going to find yourself, in that situation. Mm-hmm. Who knows when, ever again. I don't know. So you gotta get it while you can get it. And so I said, okay, we're going plan B. And I picked up the spinning rod, shifted gears, went to, polar opposite spots, and third cast, catch about a 3.5-pound smallie. And I'm excited, and 3 minutes later, my co's like net, and I look back, and he's got like a 4+. I'm like, oh. Big old smallie. He brings it up, and he's got 4 with it, right? So I'm stoked because I know it's all happening right now. And I net that, put it in the boat, grab my rod, fire right back there on those fish, and I'm just about to start reeling, and he's like, hey, I need water in the well. So I set my rod down, go walking back there to hit the button. Something tells me look back. I look back, and my pole on the side of the boat's going, and I'm like, oh God. I run over there, start to reel into it, and it's a big one. I knew it was going to be a big one. Starts to come up. It's 4+, right about this far from the surface. It does one of those like sideways 80-mile-an-hour turns to the right. Bait falls out.
It always happens like that. Always.
The I didn't tell you guys this, but on that day, the MLF photographer boat was following me, and 2 other, random boats, guys I knew, that were anglers in the tournament, but they were just following me. So, a little pressure there, and I'm like, gosh, darn it. But regroup pretty quick. My co got another one there, I think, and I got another one there. We left. Actually, yeah, I know we at least caught 3 fish there. We left. Ran a bunch of stuff, and it was slow pickings for quite a while. And finally, about noon, it seemed like a little light switch went off, and I started catching them, and I was getting a little bit of a mixture with some largemouth too. And finally, the weight that I had it with probably an hour or so to go, and I had just under 16 pounds, which I didn't weigh any fish on the boat that day. And so I was, kind of small eyeing. I'm going, okay, I've at least got 13, maybe 14. And, with a 7-point lead, that means the other guy's got to catch at least, 20 plus to catch me, Right. So I'm still trying to just keep the nerves at bay, what have you, and roll up to this next spot. And I start to, starts to load, but nothing, extreme. So I'm thinking, I'm not reacting, not doing anything. And I'm thinking it's starting to hang up. And then all of a sudden it goes, whoop, whoop. And I'm like, reel into it. Another giant smallmouth, probably 4.5. And I'm like, it comes up. It does a full cartwheel. We see it. It's fat. It's giant, black. And I'm like, that's the one. That's it. I get this thing in the boat. It's game over. And it goes back down. It's digging. I'm starting to get over to it, chasing it with the trolling motor, and comes flying up, does the same thing again before it gets to the surface, does a quick turn, bait falls out.
Oh, my word.
And I'm like, I didn't say a word on that one. The last one I yelled at the coyotes. And I just, I'm a religious dude. I just said, well, it's already predetermined anyway. I'm just along the side. And if, I truly believe, and we all know anybody that fishes tournaments, when it's your day, it's your day. And when it's not, it's not. And, what was done was done. I got to go weigh fish. So that's where it was. And we took those fish in. And the challenge was they got 25 co-anglers to go first, and then 24 pros before they're going to weigh my fish. And I just wanted to put those darn things on the scale right away to get it over. Did I win or did I get second? And when it went down, I finally got up there, put the fish, before I actually got him on the scale, he's like, he needs 12 pounds, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I knew, at least I had that. And so it was a super, super fun tournament. On the back end of it all, for me, it was probably the coolest thing. Just, all the messages and individuals that actually came up, people you looked up to, and just the kind words that they said. And this, this might sound a little strange to me, but I've watched it on the sidelines. Unfortunately, when individuals pass, they haven't had the opportunity to have a major event like this, to feel, the outreach and the love that I actually did through this event, through social media. And you only see that when someone passes, and it's a bummer, and I've actually thought about it, like, wow, what a bummer. I wonder if that dude knew how many people actually cared about him, and I felt that in this thing. So it was pretty cool.
Heck yeah. It's those moments that you need to, as hard as it is, it's the moments that you need to slow time as much as you can to, because the wins don't come very often. So those are the ones you need to really cherish. We learn the most from the losses, but I think the wins are, it obviously common sense, but those are the ones you cherish the most, but as soon as they come, the faster they go. So it's hard to, because like in your mind, everything's moving 100 miles an hour, like because your heart rate's going insane. You're like, what the heck just happened? Do you actually do it? Then you realize you do it, and then it's like you black out for a second, and you're like, oh crap, I gotta
The
slow
drive
down
home
time.
is easy.
Yeah. No, it was, I try and do that just anyway, win or lose. It's like, we are, so fortunate to be able to go out there and do that and be able to, fish, see how beautiful, I don't want to get too crazy, but, there's people that can't see, they can't hear. And it's like, I'm out there healthy, having fun. And I love it, man. I just soak it up.
Heck yeah. That's awesome. Well, dude, I want to dive into this. We're not going to have you for too much longer. And it's easily the thing I'm most curious about on the show tonight is we talked about it a little bit earlier with your surfing career prior to going down the fishing route. But you mentioned how those two can go hand in hand, especially when we talk about the mental state, decision-making, that sort of deal. Dive into that for us.
So, yeah, just to kind of summarize, I mean, the mental game is huge, probably the most important thing in fishing, and not just fishing, but I think life as a whole. It's all how you look at things. It's the lens that you look through to see, we talked about it a little bit already. You can hear the negative Nancy's at the ramp in the morning, complaining about this, that, what. Get away from them first and foremost, but it's all how you look at things. And so, I grew up, surfing, and when I used to go to some of these contests around the world, you'd show up at a venue. It was going to be those same conditions all day, and you would see, I'll call him Johnny. Johnny is absolutely light years ahead of everybody else on this particular day. His equipment, his board, everything is just perfect, and his approach to those waves is perfect. And you're thinking to yourself, we're surfing for second. Johnny's got this thing in the bag. And, with that said, as soon as he checked in, got his jersey, put it on, he's getting ready to paddle out for his first 20-minute heat. And he's got, 3 other guys in that heat. Beach announcer says, all right, up and riding. Here we go. Johnny in yellow. Johnny gets to his feet. Everything looks good. Comes off the bottom, big turn off the top, and just straight nosedive, goes over, goes down. You're like, he'll regroup. Next one's even worse. Johnny goes to bottom turn, spins out. And my point is, people, when they're out there in practice and there's no pressure, they have fun. They catch fish. They're probably approaching it the way they need to approach it. As soon as the actual tournament starts, they see the whole parking lot's full now. It's not just the 20 that was launching from where they were. You got the national anthem. You got another guy now in your boat you may or may not know. And, here we go. Tournament director calls your boat number, calls your name immediately. Do I go deep? Do I go shallow? And it's like all of a sudden they start hearing all these things that they had a plan last night when they were laying down in bed. I'm going to this. I'm going to that. I'm going to do this. And it's just the voices get loud. And, one thing that someone taught me in the surf world, right away was like, control the controllables, because there is so many uncontrollables, with the weather and the different things. So knock that out first and foremost. But, the other thing is just, you have to just keep your mind quiet, keep it focused, and also be willing to adjust, if you have to. Fortunately for me, I made the right decision on that third day. Some guys would have just said, no, those fish will eat, and rode it till the wheels fell off, and sometimes it pays off to do that too, because it will turn on. It's just those pivotal moments. But the main thing and the point that I want to make is that, it's won or lost between the years. I actually read a book, when I was surfing professionally, Psychology of Winning. And I think there was a lot of good stuff in there that just kind of set me up to just try and quiet your mind during those real key times where you have to stay focused. And you see it in the major sports with key athletes all the time. There's that same guy. There's, 3 seconds on the clock. He wants the ball in his hand. And those are the ones that have that mentality. And that's what I strive to try and have. There's going to be highs and lows, and you got to ride the highs while you can and get up out of those lows as soon as you can. And, just try and keep that mind straight.
I feel like that is such a hard thing to do when you talk about the voices that hit that start talking to you, especially when you're about to launch. I mean, I'm sure we've all experienced it. I mean, you guys a little bit more than me, beating them in the kayak, so I get a lot of time to think about things when I go to my spot, where you guys are going 70 miles an hour. It's a little bit easier.
That could be a bad thing, though, because as you're paddling or using the motor, if you can use it in a kayak tournament, like, you got to be thinking the same thoughts, like, where do I start? Because you have way more time to think about it as you're pedaling to your spot. Is where, like, us in bass boats, we're holding on for dear life sometimes if we're boat 50 in a 100-boat tournament. So just letting it rip. So we don't really have much time to think as we're driving. Honestly, I don't really, in my opinion.
Deacon, can you relate to that? Like, tournament morning and you're waiting to blast off and you hear.
Oh, yeah. I mean, no. Dude, I just got like chills when Todd said that. I love that stuff and the psychology side of winning. And like, I mean, day one, right? Like, I dropped the ball. I had 1 2-pounder and like totally what Todd's saying. I mean, like, dude, I was fishing way too fast. My co-angler caught 3 big ones. And I was like, my gosh, like, you know, it was falling apart. And like, day 2, I regrouped and honestly lost some good ones on day 3. But like it's just that's what I love about it. And you're dead on in Todd, what you're saying, as far as it's all between the ears when it comes down to it. You know, you get to a certain level and everyone is good at fishing. Yeah. Everyone can cast. Yeah. You know, it all comes to the decision making and the stuff between your ears. And so it's cool to hear that. Exactly. Because I mean, I lived it on the other side, right? Like, I didn't catch him day 1, and so it was cool to think through that.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And yeah, I just, you know, and it doesn't always work out, but I think, you learn at a young age, you know, if you, you know, it's what I try and teach my son, you know, if you give it 100%, you know, from the practice all the way through, and you don't get the outcome that you wanted, at least you can look back and say you gave it your 100%. And, you know, that's kind of what goes back to what I was talking about, that windy day and those types of things. And again, just, you know, if you've got a solid game plan, which doesn't always work out, you know, but you need to have a game plan, and you need to also be willing to adjust. And it's when we adjust and we make those key decisions and the stars align, it's, you know, it goes back to when I said, when it's your day, it's your day. And when it's not, it's not, but you have to kind of keep that even keel mindset all the way through. And, you know, you're as good as the people you surround yourself with. And if they're constantly the ones that are telling you all the stories, and, you know, they're constantly on 20 pounds in practice, but they come in with 6 every day in the tournament, might want to regroup and you know, maybe either, you know, camp on your own or whatever. But, you know, if you got people that are chirping in your ear with some of that stuff, it's not going to help, you know.
100%, man. It's good. That's juice, man. That's all. That's really what this is, in my opinion, all about, is the mental side. And it's cool to hear that from yourself.
I mean, you nailed that. I mean, I think there's a lot of people that need to look at that aspect of, as if you're going to do tournament fishing, whether you want to do it professionally or you like to do it as a good chunk of, you know, whether it's a passion or a hobby, however it may be, that's a part I think people kind of overlook, is like the crew. Do you ride with the crew? Do you do it solo? Do you camp? Do you stay in a hotel? Do you Airbnb, etc.? Those can really affect how you perform in a tournament, especially from the most important part that we're getting to, the mental state, where it's like, past couple of years, I've done the Airbnb stuff with some people, and honestly, I think it's really, when I look back at it, the bigger the group I stay with, the worse finishes I have. When I'm by myself, that is when I do my best. Yeah. It's because I don't have another voice that's giving me something else to think about. It's just my thoughts. So
yeah, I actually stayed at my buddy Robert Fayborg's house, but he had a guest house behind his, and that's where I stay. So, you know, once we're done eating and whatever, and I go shut it down, I'm solo, you know, which was fortunate for me. But, you know, to each his own, you know, some guys look at it and it is a vacation for them. It's an opportunity to get away from their day job, their family, whatever, and just enjoy themselves. And, you know, it depends on what you want out of it, you know, and if you're looking for just a good time and, you know, want to have some beers and catch some fish and possibly cash a check, hey, you know, more power to you. You know, it's whatever you want, you know, and I'm just sharing my approach, and because I want to win, you know, and I'm going to try and do everything I can to set myself up for that. And you know, along the way though, we talked about it. I'm going to soak it up. I'm going to enjoy it. I'm going to relish the times that I have with my friends. But I'm also going to know when, hey, you know what, those guys want to go a little bit further and have some whiskey tonight or whatever. We'll see you in the morning, boys.
Hell yeah.
Sleep awesome. Well.
Yeah. Sleep well. You'll hear my Mercury fire up on the way out.
Yeah,
exactly.
Oh, that's funny. That's your alarm clock. Yeah. Well, Todd, for real, really appreciate you joining the show tonight. Congrats again on the win. And we'll be rooting for you to get that second dub on Havasu here in a couple weeks. And like every new guest, we always have a question here at the end that we like to hit you with before we let you go. But really fast, I have one quick question before the last one here from Chris.
Yeah, I'm
Flay.
still married.
All right, yeah, you're gonna make a great guest on this show. All right, so really fast from Chris Flay. He said, "Todd, what is a bigger rush, a surf win or a tournament fishing win?"
Oh wow, I like that question.
It's the same. You want at that time, that was my life, and I wanted to beat the best. And when you were on that podium, you beat the best on that day, and I still get that same feeling. In the fishing world, the thing was for me, and in the back of my mind, I've never told anyone this. You brought it up at the beginning. I won 4 events as a co-angler. I won 4, large surf competitions, and I was hoping, okay, did I hit that roof now? Am I back at 4 and I'm stuck? So to finally get this one now, I've got 5 of those trophies. So I'm on the other side now, and I don't feel like I've got a roof over me.
You made it.
I made
it. Blow right through that roof.
Got the monkey off my back.
That's right. Heck yeah. Well, dude, last question of the night, and we're gonna let you go here. And that is, if you could sit down and have a steak and a beer with 3 different individuals, they do not have to be the fishing industry. They don't have to be currently alive. They could be 1,000 years ago. It doesn't matter. You can choose anybody. What 3 individuals would you invite to sit down, pick their brain, have a steak and a beer?
First would be Jesus. That's a fact. And then the others would be, probably just some of the major, best athletes, Kobe Bryant and, maybe one other dude, and just sit down and kind of pick their brain. And because again, even though it's a different field, it's all between the ears. And if you could pick some key stuff up from them that maybe you could apply to your life and to your sport, that's who I'd have dinner with. And obviously Jesus would have all the answers, so I'd be good there.
Heck yeah.
Love it.
Have all the answers. I love it. Well,
yeah.
Todd, for real, thank you so much for taking the time out. We definitely appreciate it, and we'll be having you back on here real soon.
Okay, thank you. I'm gonna make sure and hear what Deakin caught his 22 pounds on day 2.
That's right. Boy. Getting the juice.
Perfect.
All right, guys. Hey, thanks for the opportunity, and we'll chat soon. You guys have a good night.
Have a good night.
Heck yeah. Good luck in a couple of weeks, Todd.
Thank you very much. Take care.
See ya. That was a good show, boys. That was fun.
Yeah.
Heck yeah.
He fits right in.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he's definitely one of the crew that you can tell he's one of the guys poking fun at somebody at the boat ramp on Derby morning. Without a doubt.
He's awesome.
Heck
cool
yeah.
guy.
Well, dude, Deke, let's start diving into your dirt, man. You touched on it briefly. I don't want to bring it up right at the beginning where it's like you only caught 1 fish on day 1, which we were feeling for you when we got the text with the receipt. It's 2 pounds, like 5 ounces or whatever it was. And we're like, oh, man. Hate starting the year like that. That's just like not a good feeling. And then we get the text day 2 with it was like 22 pounds, 4 ounces. We're like, let's freaking go.
I don't remember the exact word, but he's like, mega bag, boys.
I was like, boys, I got a bag.
Yeah, that's
I'm like, I don't know how. Actually, I didn't know at that point how big it was.
I think what was funnier was your I think it's your Instagram story on day 1 where it was like the picture of it and you're like, not what you want. And then the picture on day 2 is the exact same picture, but with the new ticket. And you're like, this is what you want.
Dude, so many people commented that. Like even people like my girlfriend, I mean, she understands fishing based on watching what we all do and tournament fishing stuff. But she was just like, it was so genuine because you were like, it wasn't like, oh, this is me just doing good on my good day. It was like, this is like how it sucks. And like, this is how it's good. Like, it was just very like cut and dry, like 22 pounds, 2 pounds.
It's that meme where it's sometimes maybe good, sometimes maybe shit.
Literally. Literally. That's
shit day 1, great day 2. Good job, man. That was awesome.
Dude, yeah, you got me hyped on that day 2. I'm sitting there, I'm like, I was excited for Harris Chain. And I was more kind of just like focused on getting ready, getting the season going, like go fun fish on the way down here. It's kind of going through the motions. And then you you drop that bag like to come back on day 2, and I'm sitting there like, and I'm jamming in the truck. Like I'm just hyped after that. And I'm like, all right, let's go. Bring on the Harris chain. Yep, you had me going after that. But
real quick, Deacon.
Yeah.
On day 2, how many places did you jump from 2 pounds to 24 pounds?
All of them.
All of them. All of them. I was climbing the ladder in a hurry.
all the way. So, gosh, again, man, it was tough, right? Like it was not easy. So like there was some zeros. And then I want to say like, gosh, had to have been somewhere in the 80s to 14th. So 70 places, something like that. My guess.
Damn.
It's a good jump.
Just laid it out in there for them. Like, take that, boys.
It is cool. I mean, like, I love tournament fishing for stuff like that. I mean, from the first one I caught, which was like a 4.6 or 4.7, like I literally told my co-angler, it was awesome too. The experience with Adrian, my co-angler, was an absolute blast that day. And it was like that first fish. I was like, well, I told him, I was like, dude, I need 22 pounds, like to have a chance to fish the next day. I need like a bag. And after that first one, I was like, well, that's one of them. Like I only need 4. Like I'm not going to call that one. So it should be all right. I only got 4 more to go. And then I caught another one, and like the shakes of like putting him in the live well. And then when I caught the big one, it was like shakes and then weighing the fish. I mean, like my hands were shaking. Like I went and shook Todd Kline's and Bird's hand next to him, like, and I was just like, like, wow, look at that. I'm like, dude, this fires me up. Like I could catch a 6 or 7 pounder fun fishing, and it doesn't give me half the rush that I get, not even to like that tournament feeling. It's just, it doesn't matter what it is too. It could be a Tuesday nighter. Like I love that feeling.
The competitive aspect of it just adds an extreme thrill factor to it.
It does, man.
I agree though. Like you could go and lose a giant fun fish and you're like, damn, that sucks.
Yeah.
But then you do it in a tournament when you know what that could mean, especially on Derby Day, and you're sitting there like, I could cry right now. It
eats at you, man.
You're like, I have tears.
To be honest, that's probably the hardest part of a tournament too, is like losing that big fish and rebounding from it instantly. Because a lot of people, as we're talking on the mental side, a lot of people will sit and carry that lost fish through the entire day.
Short memory.
And you have to flip it and be like, okay, I got one big bite. I'm going to get another one. It's just when.
Well, like I figured something out, right? Yeah. Like, okay, maybe I'm onto something here. I just got a big bite, So, and it happened. I mean, right? Like Todd fought through that on his final day of losing big fish. I mean, he talked about that. So,
yeah. Well, dude. So we have a question from Chris Flay asking how bad. I mean, I'm sure it's common sense, but how bad did you want to do over on day 1?
Real bad, man. I mean, that sucks, right? Like when that stuff happens. But I was kind of doing stuff that I was not as comfortable with. How I caught some fish in practice, but not super comfortable. And my co-angler was catching them, and phenomenal guy, great angler. And that's just how it can go. If anyone's fished a boat or a co-angler event, like there can be times when a co-angler's just straight catching them with an angle or casting. And like, I mean, dude, was cool as we talked after. And he's like, man, you're fishing too fast. Like, it's true. Like I was going through throwing a small swim bait around, and like I was missing fish that he was catching. I mean, almost pendulum and a swim bait off the back of the boat. I mean, some of these fish were coming out of 20 feet of water, 25 feet of water. And it was that's just how it goes, and you learn and try to adjust from that. But really what made the big adjustment, so many people are asking like, well, what did you adjust? What did you do? I mean, so back to Todd's point, I think you got to figure out who you want to kind of run with in tournaments. And I think there's kind of 2 approaches. I think for me, what works is like either doing stuff alone, like you're saying, camping. Like I enjoy that aspect, and that almost happened in this situation. But then 2 guys from Colorado, Nate and Ty, they won a boat in the ABAs this last year. Ty's fishing all 9 opens. He's fishing the Western Toyotas as well. Nate, we're trying to convince to fish the other Western Toyotas. Phenomenal guys, like, and phenomenal anglers, like best in Colorado. Problems when you see them on the tournament list, seriously. And they're good buddies of mine, and we stayed together. And we're sitting at this place that got an awesome folks, and same kind of deal, a house to stay at Havasu that is great. And we're sitting in the hot tub that night. Like you
were balling.
Yeah. horrible. Nice. Like it was great to have like, dude, that's wild, right? Like, and these guys caught them like decent, right? They're both in the thick of it. They both had 12 pounds or something like that. Like, and it was tough. Again, if you did 12 pounds a day, this entire thing, I don't know where you would have ended up, but you would have liked where you end up for sure. To catch that every single day. But so we're sitting there and my buddy Ty's like, well, you need a bag, and whatever you're going to do, you need to commit to it. And like, where do you feel like you can go catch 20 something pounds? And I'm like, well, I know the areas. Like, I've been looking at them on live scope. Like, I know they're bass. I caught them in practice, and sure enough, man, like, I went back to those fish. I picked up stuff I had more confidence in. Still had the swim bait on the deck for sure. But like, I think a great way to get a big bite is an A-rig. Like, it's an awesome bait when it's legal. A trap is a fantastic bait to catch a big green one on. And like that kind of stuff. Like, I had found these fish, a couple of groups of largemouth in kind of low spots near grass or where grass traditionally grows. And there was some grass in those spots. And I, in practice, stopped on that super windy day that Todd was talking about. Like, I'm looking at them and I'm like, dude, I know these are bass. Like, Havasu's got big shad in it. It's got carp in it, right? It's got a bunch of species. It's got like those giant bluegill things. But like, pretty much after you're staring at live scope all day, you kind of get dialed in on what a bass looks like eventually when you start to catch one. And just from experience of looking at live scope, right? Like, okay, these fish are low along the grass, like right size, like those are bass. And I sat for 45 minutes and threw baits at this group of fish, and I could not get them to bite. And I picked up a jerk bait and I caught one. And I was like, okay, those are bass. That's an entire school of bass. That same day, throwing at fish, I was yo-yoing a trap. And it was one of the only things I could get him to react at. Like, I'd throw a swim bait at him, I'd do all this stuff. Every once in a while, I would follow it back. I mean, dude, like, the fish there, like, are just zombies following swim baits. Like, it's wild. You'll just all the way back to the boat, like 5 of them, right? And it's just, you can't get one to eat. And so the second day I went to those fish and was like, I'm making these suckers freaking bite. Like, I'm gonna make them bite. Like, I know they're bass. I started scrambling day 2 and it was like, or day 1, and it wasn't happening. But day 2, man, like, those 3 baits, a swim bait, an A-rig, and a trap. And the A-rig, like, man, that's a big fish bait for me. Like, it's just a way, as you guys know, like, you can get a real one, a right one. And I was on largemouth, like bigger largemouth, and then my smallmouth bite in practice were random. Like, it wasn't working for me. I wasn't on a good smallmouth bite. Like, but when I catch one, it'd be over 4 pounds. Right. And so where I caught the big one, I roll into this area and I catch one coming around the point. And I was like, okay, that was my 3rd fish. And I saw like a group, right, on live scope. Again, these are bass. I caught one here in practice. These are the same fish. They're not moving. It was cool. Like, it was a really cool experience. I power pulled down on those fish. And I sat there and casted and casted and casted and casted. And I'm, like 40 minutes in throwing at these fish. Pick up an A-rig, throw it across them. Pick up a swim bait, throw it across them. Pick up a jerk bait, throw it across them, right? Like, and I did catch some fish on a jerk bait too, but that was on the final day. But anyways, so I can't get him to react to anything. And I'm like, in practice, I had some fish follow a trap anyway. None of them ate it, but like, good reaction bait, especially when you're looking at them. So I picked up the trap in a little grass patch, like, I don't know, 12 to 15 feet of water, maybe a little bit shallower. But this group, I'd watch them. Like, they'd like go out a little deeper and then work their way back up. And I'm like, they're freaking big ones. Like, some of them I can see their tails on live scope. Like, these are real ones. And I picked up the trap and I started yo-yoing it, and like 3 of them are following it. And I'm like, oh my, here we go. 3 of them. Like, this is the first cast with it. I'm like, oh boy, here we go. And then finally, like, rip it up again. And like, dude, it was a freaking jig bite. Like, it was like just boom, like on slack line. And I think I have it on video too. So I'm excited to see it. But like, leaned into him and was like, oh, this is a real one. And Koengler nets it, and I'm like, man, dude, that's over 5. Like, that's a good one. He's like, dude, that's a giant. Like, that's a way over 5.
That's awesome.
He's like, shut up, dude. It's bigger.
And that was
he called your bluff.
Literally, like, I'm always trying to go under on fish, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the 4th one, and then I caught another good one out of that group. Same deal, sitting there forever, just changing angles, like doing I mean, if they're gonna sit there, right? Like it's the stories like you hear about. I don't know. I listened to a podcast the other day on Bertrand's Angler's Happy Hour, talking to Alton Jones Jr., like making 15 casts to the same stump at a fish he saw on LiveScope, like just making that over and over and over until they go. But day 3, those same fish did not bite. Like I tried and lost one, like, and then they completely shut off. So it's just I don't know. It was a cool way to fish for me. Like, I haven't sat ever and made cast for 45 minutes to the same group of fish and then got one to bite. So that was a cool deal for me.
It was like fishing. It's like fishing spawners essentially then, but
literally, dude, that was my mindset. Like, I can see you like that. That's why I love spawn fishing, right? Is because it's like
the game.
Nate and I were talking about this in the hot tub. Like, it makes the decision making out of it. Like, you just go to the big one and then the next one and then the next one. And if you can't one to go, then you go to this one. Like, there's no decision making in a spawn tournament because hopefully you have enough found where you can just go categorically like this one.
Yeah.
But it was cool, man. It's a cool experience. And then day 3, I wish I had, honestly, to Chris's point, I wish I had day 1 back, but I really wish I would have landed some of the fish day 3. I don't think I had the mega bag that I would have had day 2, but I think I should have had 15 to 17. Like, I lost 4 fish. I think that it was slick and sunny. I don't think they were eating the swim bait as good as when it was cloudy day 2. And I think that helped the largemouth bite for sure, in my opinion, on day 2. But I lost some fish, like, and I executed perfectly on day 2. And with what Todd was saying, like, it was tough out there to where it was like, I mean, you're only getting 5 to 8 bites a day. If you were getting more than that, like, you were really on them. Like, it was not easy. So, like, you had to bat 100 if you could, you know. And I did day 2. Like, it was super focused, executed, everything like that.
Do you think it was just the conditions for the reason for you losing fish on day 3, or do you think it was anything else?
I do think it was something else too, man. So here's something important. Especially with big fish. A-rig guys, like, your thin, especially thin wire versus thick wire A-rigs.
Mm-hmm.
I should have immediately changed out that A-rig after.
Oh, don't tell me you broke a wire.
Oh yeah, first fish of the day broke a wire. That was a good one. Like,
dude, that hurts the soul.
That hurts the soul real bad. Like, so that's a great lesson. Like, do that. Like, so that was the first lost fish. And then, so after that, I had another rod rigged up, right? I pulled that one out. It was a heavier rod than the other rod I was throwing the A-rig on.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the conditions, the fish weren't biting as well. And I think with that heavier rod, again, just totally a me thing, totally could have been fine. Like, but I was pulling it, I think, out of those fish's mouths. Like, I had a 4-pounder eat on the same point where I had caught one the day before, which was cool. I had one come out and just smoke it, like cracked him, and was like, sweet, came off. Well, this fish is fired up. I spin LiveScope over to where he's at. I'm reeling. Dude comes again, unglued on it, like smokes it again. And again, this is on Havas, you can only use 2 hooks on an A-rig. So there's definitely dummies and that kind of stuff that can be involved, but smoked it again. Have him for a second this time, and I see him. It's like a 4-pound green one, like shaking his head. I mean, he bit it right at the boat the second time, and I lost that one. And like, it was like, gosh, dang it. Like, 2, like, and then I had just a couple of short strikes where, like, it would be like, I don't know, the day before, every single one connected. So that, and then the same with the swim bait. I lost one on the swim bait, and I kind of scrambled last minute and caught some fish on a jerk bait. That kind of started to seem to happen in the sun a little bit, but I think those fish were really pressured. I wish I had more to go to on day 3. Like, there was other guys in those areas, including myself, but like, I think I wish I would have had more, and I wish I would have found some smallmouth to just like go back to kind of the way Todd did.
Yeah. Now, was it a 5-wire A-rig? Like, what was it? And like, where did you put, if you had 2 hooks, where'd you put your 2 hooks?
Yeah, man, there's some couple of juice things out there for that. So what was interesting too, another thought that I had was like on the California side, you could throw 3 hooks. On the Arizona side, you could throw 2. So in hindsight, it would have been cool to have one of each if that was what was happening. Again, like I think you can catch those same fish on a single swimmer. I mean, like Todd was talking about, I really do. I have more confidence in an A-rig than a single swimmer and crawling. Like those guys, dude, with that are just so like, I mean, crawling those single swimmers. And for whatever reason, I can do that easier with an A-rig. And I feel like if they're in the right mood, and they have to be in the right mood, and it's harder when it's slick, like it can draw that 5-pounder to bite instead of maybe just catching the smaller ones. But to each his own. But like there's a great rig out there for that stuff. It's called the G-Funk. It's a Western rig, and they make one called the Desert Rig to where you can have 2 hooks on it. So it has 2 that hang lower and longer back, and then 3 dummies above it. So there's a lot of different things you can kind of do to make it a 2-wire hook or 2-wire A-rig for your hooks. But that's yeah, I'm excited to like go through the footage, man. I know I'm gonna need I got to figure out what I'm gonna do with all this footage. Just talking to Bailey, like you guys have awesome YouTube channels, and it's just so much. I do not enjoy the editing and that kind of stuff, but like I got some good GoPro footage, and I can't wait to like put it together. Maybe even if it's a reel or something of those catches, because I think I have most of them on that good bag day.
Yeah, I mean the editing sucks. I won't sugarcoat it. It definitely sucks. But there's something cool about putting something together. It's like you're writing your own short story, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
I'm a little biased because I always thought growing up I was going to be a writer until I realized I hate the actual act of writing. I find it exhausting, but I like the thought of writing. I don't know if that makes sense, but dude, I mean, I think there's people out there that might be interested in editing for you. I don't know.
No, I've considered that too. If anyone's interested on some of that stuff, let me know. Because
calling all college interns.
That too. That would be great. Someone who's like interested in making a name for themselves and that kind of a thing. I'd be happy to still obviously compensate you. So,
yeah, you know what? Honestly, like if you're listening to this, say you're in high school or college and you're interested in getting into the fishing industry, the hardest part about getting into the fishing industry is the first job, the first connect. It's like you hear about it. It's a cliche of like certain industries about being who you know. Well, it couldn't be more true for the fishing industry. Shoot us an email or get in touch with social, even if it's not like with us. If it's a way we can assist you to get in the industry, reach out to us, especially if you're interested in editing or social or anything like that. Reach out. We might be able to work something out. But I think, Deakin, you should throw it to the viewers, especially for Biz from the Bass Boat. Like, should Deakin start his own channel? What should I kind of like it.
It'd be cool. Yeah.
Man, sounds like a lot of work, but it does sound like fun.
You could.
Who doesn't like more work?
You could structure it like Justin Lucas or Polnick, where they only post when they have derbs.
Right. It doesn't necessarily have to be something that's all the time. It's good fun.
Especially if you find somebody that can edit for you. You're just like, hey, here's a memory card. Have fun.
I need to also set my camera on loop, and do things that I need to be better about. But anyways.
Yeah, dude, the loop stuff is like, that is the deal, like the easiest way to do it.
Right.
But I never do it because I am so simple-minded that I will 1000% forget, get caught up, something cool happen, and I'll be freaking out about it, talking to the camera for more than 5 minutes, pass the loop, and lose the actual footage, just me talking nonsense. I know that's exact. So that's why I just run through it, and I painfully go through the entire 8.5 hours of footage on a 265 gig SD card.
Dude, yeah. You want to know something even more painful with SD card stuff?
Yeah, hit me.
Okay, so at Coeur d'Alene this last year, I was barring a boat because I blew the power head on my boat, which was not cool. Luckily, insurance covered it, everything like that. Everything was good. But anyways, was borrowing a boat, had a big SD card waterproof case that I keep all my SD cards in for like GoPros, map chips, as we know. Like I have hundreds of dollars. Probably like $1,000 in map chips, of Humminbird map chips. Right.
I'm scared to see
and 256 gig with GoPro footage on them, kinds of things. And dude, it is gone. I cannot find it. And the worst part is the guy who let us borrow his boat sold his boat. So like it's like gone, man. Like, and I'm just like, oh, like I borrowed a map chip for this tournament this last weekend. And it was just like, oh, it hurts so bad, but
devastating.
Ouch.
Yeah,
Ouch.
bad deal.
Honestly, I think I'd be more upset. I mean, this is just personally because I'm biased as a content creator. I'd be more sad about the lost footage than the map chip.
Yeah.
The map chip you can get back. Like you can buy another one.
That's true.
Like the
That's
footage
true,
is like it's gone.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
I was so depressed, dude, when sometimes, I mean, filming is sometimes a pain in regards to like you're relying on technology, and technology, especially when weather's bad, just acts a fool.
Right.
Like when I won the Ike charity tournament, I was super excited because the footage was just straight 8 hours of catching frogfish over and over and over again.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was like, this is going to be such a sick video because I took the GoPro in like through Ike's place, like for the podcast I did with them. And I'm like, this is going to be a sick video for the YouTube channel. I go and I plug it in the computer at the hotel that night and it says file corrupt. And I about cried. I was like, this is going to be just shaping up to be awesome. But I mean, even like going back, even if you don't have the YouTube channel, right, there's something to be said for being able to use it as a study tool.
Oh, dude, huge. And just to watch like where you're positioned when a fish bites. Like I'm really curious to see that day too, when I was missing fish, like what was I doing differently? Obviously it's a different rod and by the way, like right after that happened, I cut it off, changed back to my rod that I was using it on. And I lost another one on that. Like I think there's so much there. It was just indeed everyone loses fish. It was just part of it. I was just 100% on day 2 and was not that case on day 3. But like, dude, I think that's huge. And I think too, just so much about the content side. Like, again, I think one thing to think about too is it's cool because you're documenting all this. So if you have kids one day, like you get to show them this stuff, or even if it's not for like, you're getting to document your journey through everything. Right. So it's kind of a cool deal.
Your dad dropped a bag on him.
Go watch this. Boom.
That's how you set the hook, son.
that was kind of cool with like Roy Hawk and Dean Rojas down there, right? Like both locals to have us, who both absolute hammers, but both their kids were fishing that, or at least Dean's was fishing the college tournament, won the college tournament, and then I think Sonny Hawk was fishing our tournament, finished in the top 10.
That's sick.
So it was cool to see like 2 generations of hammers. Like that stuff is all those guys are going to be a problem here in the next couple of years.
Dude, you know what would be a cool episode is getting on people like those 2 kids, like the kids of Sonny and Rojas's kid, getting on like Elton Jones Jr.,
Rombanis,
Laker
Howell. Like, dude, there's tons of them, right? Cal Lane, awesome, dude. Like, there's
that would be sick. And kind of like just seeing the upbringing, like where did it start? Because obviously, because there's 2 sides of it, right? There's a serious advantage, especially if they want to take the same path as their parent did from a professional fishing standpoint. There's a severe advantage of 1, you have connections. 2, you have a foot in the industry already with your last name. 2, you have an immense amount of knowledge that you'll be able to soak up your entire life. But there is a downfall where, like, I feel bad for Jackson Rubanis, who actually stayed with the TOC. He made the TOC from the kayak side this year.
Yeah.
Really great kid. A freaking hammer. Like the kid, I saw him and I ran into each other once in practice, and he just straight up embarrassed me for like 5 minutes. Like I couldn't catch a fish. The kid was catching up. Like I couldn't explain it. And he was throwing a frog. And I was like, that has your dad written all over it. Like, I wonder where you learned that from. But it's like the kid he's made it in his own way, which is super cool. It's like very, like you can see that he's taken things from his dad, but then applied it to the way he wants to fish. Mm-hmm. And it's super cool to see that. But I would think the only downside to being born or something like that is you're overshadowed.
Dude, that's where like 100%. Like I think you can't take anything away from those kids. Like you can say like they've got an advantage because of this, but like they still have to go and catch them. Like to me, like there's still like, I mean, that's like the same thing with being like, okay, well, like your dad was an Olympic athlete and then now you're an Olympic athlete, or like a Christian McCaffrey, right? Like things like that. And it's like, I think that like, yes, that is what, but like, again, back to like you and I, Bailey, all the time have discussions on like, man, like, dude, everything, people are always going to have advantages in this world. And that's great. And like, that's awesome for those kids. You know what I mean? Like I'm fired up. Like that's really cool, but I'm not viewing it like they have some crazy advantage and it's, you know, better. Like, it's just like, it is what it is. And I'm glad for those guys. Like, that's a cool thing.
No, I completely agree. I think the people that are sitting back, they're like, damn, of course he won. His dad's Fred.
Right.
And it's like,
right.
Dude, like if that's your
You're
mindset,
never going to win with that attitude.
Fishing tournaments. Like, stop. Like if you look at that and you're like, I mean, Andy said it early in the episode, like the guys that show up to the ramp and they're already negative. Like those are the people you already don't have to worry about. The people that are like, who look at a Cal Lane and stuff like that, like, oh, well, of course he's good because his dad. Like those are the people you never have to worry about.
No.
If anything, it's cool because like what I really admire about it is us as podcast hosts and anglers and us three being just generally curious people, like we study these guys. We study how they fish. We've always talked about how we love when like Bassmasters are live when they're not catching fish because you see the wheels turning more.
100%.
Like it's cool to study how they have, like I was talking earlier with Jackson, you could see a couple things that he's obviously taken from his dad, but then how he's his own angler, which is I think would be a cool show to do with a bunch of those guys of bring that out, because you definitely know that, like we were saying, there's just some people that I think it's not a negative or disadvantage, but like even your dad's Randy Howell, who's won a classic and is this legend. Like it's hard to start making a name for yourself where they don't think of your dad first. It's not a bad thing. It's just more like it's more like just a behavioral act. Really, it's what all it is. It's a super interesting topic that I find fun to discuss. It's really what I was getting at. But yeah,
I like it, man. No, I think you're dead on. Like I think that's that would be a really cool show. It was cool to hear on Bertrand's podcast. I mean, just the way that Alton Jones Jr. was talking about like growing up fishing around his dad and like traveling to tournaments and practicing. Like he had no idea what like catching a fish was like because his entire childhood was shaking fish off in practice. Like he'd be like, "Hey dad, there's one." And his dad, he's like, "Dude, my dad is someone who does not set the hook. Like in practice, like he is someone who like very few times is he going to actually set the hook on one." And so he's just like, yeah, man. Like I'd be like, Dad, there's one. Like, Dad, there goes one. That's all I did.
That's amazing. Could you imagine like his first tournament? He like comes in with no fish, and it's like, what happened? Well, I never know how to set the hook because you wouldn't let me.
Right.
That's amazing. Yes, I mean, like Andy, when Emmy becomes the first female to win the Bassmaster Classic, and everybody forgets about Andy.
Yeah, that'd be wild. Yeah, I doubt that'll happen, but
I think, dude, I think that's a big thing too. Like, I mean, Andy's the parent here, can really speak on this, but I think like a big part of that too is like not pressuring your kid into fishing, right? Like you're like, dude, choose it for yourself. Like, but I'm not going to be like, this is what we do as whatever our last name says, you know?
That was actually a really cool conversation. And I would love to make the show happen where we get like Fred and Jackson on. Fred actually came out during practice to come see Jackson, whatever he got back from an event. And I, for whatever reason, I was editing that night, doing work, and I think I was just putting like the rods I rigged in the truck when he was pulling up at like 1 a.m. and we just sat there and talked for probably 30 minutes. And that was one thing he said too, is like, it's cool like to see somebody like when they're super proud of somebody else. Like you could see like their glow about him, but like when he talked about it, he's like, he's made his own path. It's cool to see him taking this path kayak and doing something different, starting his own thing. That'd be a cool show to make happen. But I feel like we could talk about this specific topic for hours and hours on end. But we do. So coming up on Serious Angler, we do not have a a Friday show scheduled just yet. There will be one. We don't have our guest 100% lined up. But coming up for next week on Business from the Bass Boat, which was a nice surprise guest for tonight, getting you on here, Deakin, which is the Bass Boat, for people who may not know, is a business show on the Serious Angler Network. So if you guys want to check it out, Deakin runs it. What's coming up on Monday morning?
Yeah, guys. And first of all, very sorry. dude, when we had a backup, supposed to have a show right before I took off for the tournament. That didn't happen. We're a couple weeks out on Business from the Bass Boat, but we have an awesome show lined up. We've got the boys from Do It Molds coming on. We are going to compare, straight business side of things, a list of premium baits when it comes to jig heads, really, cost wise, to build that same bait or make yours better. So what we're literally comparing is the cost when it comes to, if you are interested in pouring your own lead and that kind of stuff, making high quality baits of high use items, right? So like drop shot weights, dead heads, swim bait heads, those type of things. And we're just running a cost comparison on what it ends up costing you to run all that stuff versus buying it yourself. So that will be Monday's show.
That's going to be a sick show.
Yeah.
I think that's really going to open a lot of people's eyes to what it's a lot of upfront costs, the majority of it. But once you look at like a long term, especially as a tournament angler, or like in Andy's case as a guide, where you much tackle,
can't imagine
the amount of money you save is unreal.
Well, and it's also
it's quality. Like that's the part. That's the part that I think that I've always missed right before kind of getting into it all, is like you can make it better or the best on the market or as good as whatever your favorite jig head is.
Yeah. And it could be just simply changing out hooks for how exactly you want to fish it and for the rod you're fishing it on. Like,
right.
My favorite thing about pouring custom jig heads, right? Like for swim bait fishing, is the fact that the longest I have to wait is 20 minutes for the pot to heat up, and I can bust out 40 of them in like an hour, or 50, 60 of them once you get a fluid motion going down. It's just, I can't really do it right now because it's been too cold. So, because I do it outside. So you need like stable temperatures because you need your cast to be hot when you pour the lead into it. So yeah, but it's fun. I thoroughly enjoy it.
Yeah. And I mean, it's cool when you're like, because when you go and you shop online, and there's some decent options out there, pending what kind of jig head it is. But like you go to like, oh, this is a tungsten jig head. I love the jig head, but the hook's trash. Or like, this hook's great, but it doesn't have this part,
or the hook keeper, or like,
like it's not the right angle that you want. Where Do It Molds, you can do all that. I think the only negative I would say with Do It Molds is you can't do tungsten. That is the only drawback. Everything else you can make exactly what you want, which I think is super cool.
Yeah, and I think too, there's different sides to that too. I mean, just like there's certain things that like I really feel like I need tungsten in, it makes a difference, and then there's certain things like, for me, most of the time, I don't really feel like I need a tungsten drop shot weight. Now, I know a lot of guys really like that, but like for me, I can see it well on live scope. I think I can see a tungsten slightly better if it's like a situation where I really need to look. But like if it's just fishing the majority of the time, I'm good with lead. I don't mind losing it as much. So that's some of my thoughts.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. So coming up is from the Bass Boat. That's gonna be a fun show. Having the Do It Molds boys on. Andy, really fast breeze through what was last week's Lure Lab show.
Oh, you're gonna make me think this late. What did I do? I completely Carolina rig. Sorry, dude. My brain is Carolina rig. We had Steve Mooey on down there in Florida, and we're talking about wintertime, and it really pertains to like Texas, Florida, Southeast, when the water's starting to warm, because that's the places they're fishing it right now. But this week we're going to be doing another like Southeast winter technique, and we're going to be talking about swimming a worm. So that's going to be a fun one for Saturday. Yeah.
Florida as it gets.
Yeah.
Heck yeah.
Good stuff.
Boys, tonight was an awesome show. Thank you again to Todd for coming on. I was really serious in wanting to do a co-angler panel. We did one like 2 years ago. We did a co-angler panel. But it would be sick to get on like Lucas and Todd, Brian New, Sakai, like the
guys who are just a problem. I actually had someone text me during that and send us another co-angler or two that are just killing it. So
that'd be a sick show. But fellas, this was a lot of fun. Deacon, congrats again on the comeback. Great start to the year. If you guys should keep up with it, and you guys should follow Deacon on social, and 2, bombard his DMs telling him he should start his YouTube channel, start posting all his tournament footage. Pressure, peer pressure, people. It's healthy. It's not unhealthy.
Peer pressure is healthy when it's good.
That's right. Good peer pressure is only healthy when it's good. Love it. But everyone that joined in tonight, appreciate you guys. If you're listening to this on MP3, please leave us a rating and review. Helps out big time. But fellas, anything else before we sign off here tonight?
Cool. I just say I can't wait for it to get warm in New York so I can get my boat.
Or just be like me and come to Florida because you have parents.
Yeah.
Come ransack your parents.
I'll just go stay here. I'll go stay with Steve and the baby. All right. He'd probably let me stay there.
Good luck with that.
Yeah. I'm used to not sleeping. So yeah.
Appreciate y'all. And we'll see you guys on Friday.